Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name is Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com, and Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners, and you can find it on all popular podcasting streams and on YouTube. And today my guest is Alicia Butler Pierre. And Alicia, 15 years ago, founded Equilibria. It's a boutique operations management firm specialising in increasing bandwidth for fast-growing small businesses. This is done via business infrastructure, and she believes that she is one of the few people in the world who specialise in it. She's even leveraged her background in chemical engineering to develop the Castanew framework for business infrastructure and invent software by the same name. Oh my God, that's quite an achievement. She hosts a weekly business infrastructure. She is also the host of weekly business infrastructure Curing Back Office Blues podcast, which currently reaches listeners in 38 countries. That's amazing as well. And she's authored a 2 times Amazon bestseller book, Behind the Facade: How to Structure Company Operations for Sustainable Success. It's the world's first published book to focus exclusively on business infrastructure for small business. Combined with her online content, which has generated over 750,000 views, that is absolutely amazing. Alicia's mantra is simple and applies to everything that she does. It's leave it better than you found it.
Talking with the Experts.
Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you for that very lovely introduction.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I wrote it myself. So tell me a little bit more about Equilibria.
Well, Equilibria, as you mentioned earlier, is a boutique operations management firm, and we specialize in helping fast-growing small businesses scale with less pain. And the way we do that is through what we call business infrastructure. That's like a really short and sweet. Okay.
Yeah, can you
I don't want to just kind of keep going on.
What you mean by business infrastructure? We all know what infrastructure is, but yeah.
Right. Well, actually, that's a really great point, Rose, to start with. So when most people hear the word infrastructure, they either think transportation or they think in terms of technology, information technology, IT. But we're talking about business infrastructure. And so what business infrastructure does is it's nothing more than a system for how you link your people, your processes, and your tools so that they work cohesively to sustainably scale your business. So just like transportation infrastructure kind of connects different modes of transportation, whether you're talking about airplanes, ships, cars, these different modes of transportation and how they can all link together so that people can flow about as seamlessly as possible. The same is true with business infrastructure. You want to take those core elements of any business, regardless of size or industry, and make sure that they are connected in such a way that information and work can flow as seamlessly as possible.
So how can they do that? I mean, what is a simple, is it like a flowchart sort of?
Well, flowcharts are definitely a part of it. So that's a great call out. So that's a great question, actually. How do you start to do something like this? How do you build this business infrastructure? And that's where our framework comes into play. So after working, Rose, for about, I would say, the first 2 to 3 years in business, I worked with several different entrepreneurs, small business owners, and I started to notice patterns across the work that we were doing together. So it didn't matter the size of the actual size of their company. It didn't matter what industry they were in. They were always struggling with roughly the same things in what I call their back office. And I developed a framework that addresses 7 key components of these back office operations. So starting off with trying to just figure out what the heck needs to be done at this company. So coming up with a very robust list of all of the tasks and activities that you have to perform in your company, no matter how complex or how mundane. So it always starts with that piece right there, Rose, is literally asking the question, what work needs to be done? And once you go through that very rigorous brainstorming exercise, you can then start to figure out how to categorize or group those different activities into departments. And once you know that information, believe it or not, that serves as a foundation for creating your company's organizational chart, your paper records, your physical records management system, your electronic or digital records management system, the way that you actually physically lay out and organize your workspace, as well as the processes. So that's where your flowcharts come into play. So once you know what activities need to be performed, how those activities are actually grouped into departments, you're then in a much better position to then be able to identify the processes within each of those departments. And that's where your flowcharts come into play. So that's a framework for how you can start to build your company's business infrastructure.
Absolutely. So what actually are the 7 steps other than the first 2 that you've just mentioned?
Sure. So the first one is what I call that business parts analysis. So that's, again, where you're going through the rigorous brainstorming exercise. The next one we have is creating your company's organizational chart. So often when especially for really small and micro-sized businesses, we might think that that's not a useful exercise, but it absolutely is. Because you know how we talk about the importance of doing vision boards and how when you do your vision board, it's a way of attracting into your life the things that you want to attract. You can also look at your organizational chart the same way. So even if you are a solopreneur, or if it's just you and maybe one other person on your team, it's not going to always be that way unless you want it to be that way. So think of your organizational chart really as a vision board for how you want to see your company, what you want your company to look like, let's say a year from now, 3 years from now. The next 2 areas, Rose, actually focus on your records, your company's records, whether you keep things physically, actual paper, as well as electronically, especially with what the world went through last year with coronavirus. So many of us were forced into digitization, digital transformation. And so we're keeping and storing even more information electronically. How do you keep that organized? So those are the next 2 areas. Then we have the actual layout of your workspace. That's a 5th area that we can take a look at. Even if you're just in one office, you can actually dedicate different sections of your office to certain quote unquote departments. You may say, okay, over in this corner of my office, this is where I keep everything that has to do with sales and marketing. And over in this corner is where I keep everything that has to do with the day-to-day operations of my company. A 6th area, actually the last 2 areas I should point out, have to do with the processes piece. So first you want to look at what I call a service delivery blueprint. And Rose, that's nothing more than literally you outlining how to do what you do at your company, the core operations, the heart of your business. How do you perform those steps from beginning to end? So whether you are manufacturing or producing a physical object, or if you are providing a service, what are all of those steps? And it's important to get that out of your head and onto paper.
Your paper or whatever, yeah.
Exactly. So that you can start to train other people on how to do what you do. And then the very last piece, which again is also process related, is creating that operations manual. So again, getting all of the knowledge out of your head and into a digital format, paper format, whatever it looks like, so that you can start to train other people as you build your company and it continues to grow. You have to hire more people, you have to expand your team, and you will now have the tools that you need to actually onboard them and train them properly. So those are the seven
that's
areas.
Really, and that's I guess, the whole set of processes that every business should be doing. I know that that's something that I would do in my own business if I had more staff. I mean, at the moment, I don't write anything down because it's just me, although I should be doing it.
Yes, you should be doing it, Rose, because here's what's going to happen. When we start our businesses, we're just go, 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 go. And we know how to do everything. But you can reach a point where even though it may still only be you may still forget a step or miss something. So even if you just have a little checklist for yourself, Rose, where you can, and something that you just physically keep on top of your desk, and just to remind yourself, whether you're preparing for an episode of your vodcast or you're working with one of your clients or your customers, what are some of the key things that you always want to make sure that you do? So that would be one quick way of starting to get information out of your head and onto paper so that you can actually start reminding yourself, okay, yes, I forgot that I needed to send. Part of what I do when I'm working with my clients or my customers is I always send them a thank you email. It could be something as simple as that, but you just want to make sure you don't forget to do it.
Yep, absolutely. And you're quite right. I mean, it's just procrastination.
I think we're all guilty of that in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I know I definitely am.
So let me ask you about your podcast, Business Infrastructure. What does that, and who do you have on?
I am so fortunate, Rose, because like you, I interview guests on my show, and they're just so incredible. These are people literally around the world, and they come on and they share specifically how they have been able to either scale their businesses, or if they have a particular expertise in something, they come onto the show and they share exactly how they do something. But not only that, I ask that each guest actually shares at least 3 resources that they can share with the audience. Because what happens so often for us as small business owners, we don't always have access to the information, or we don't know where to go to find certain information to help us out with different growing pains that we may be experiencing. And it's very frustrating because, especially in my world with processes and operations, a lot of times, Rose, when you go and you look for information to help you in those areas, you're going to find one of 2 things. One, the information is usually reserved for very large companies. So it could be a book, it could be a summit of some sort, a conference, a workshop, and it is going to be tailored to those very large organizations. And then secondly, you might find that the information has to do with manufacturing companies. But what if you have you offer a professional service of some sort, and you don't necessarily produce a tangible physical good? Then how can you retrofit that information to your company? So that's why it's so important for my guests to come on and not just share how they've done something or how they've accomplished or achieved a particular thing, but to also share the books that they've read, the people that they consulted, the workshops or classes that they took, the professional organizations that they might be members of. And we just take all of that information and we compile it into the show notes for each episode.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a really good tip, actually. I think
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, as you know.
Yeah, I might steal that idea, actually. Never mind.
You heard it here first, everyone.
That's it. That's it. I'm going to steal it. So, and tell me about we haven't talked about your book. So tell me about your book, please.
Sure.
And why did it get to number one twice? That's amazing.
Thank you. So it reached the bestseller status, as you've mentioned, twice on Amazon. And the way that I really believe, Rose, the reason why that happened is because it's targeted specifically to small businesses. There are not there's not a lot of information out there when it comes to talking about processes and operations and business infrastructure specifically for smaller companies. The books that do talk about these things, again, are usually geared toward the much larger organizations or for manufacturing companies. So I really believe that's why it went to number one. It hit bestseller status the first time. The second time it was interesting because it was about a year after the book had been out. And I did a promotion during it. I'm here in the US and we celebrate Small Business Month in the month of May. Mm-hmm. And I did a promotion. And by that point, Rose, I had placed a lot of effort in boosting up my social media presence. So I had way more followers and connections across some of the major social media platforms in comparison to when I first launched the book. So I think that's why it hit bestseller status the second time around, because for so many people that I was now connected to, it was their first time really hearing me talk about the book and promote the book actively. Yeah.
Well done. That's really good. Now tell me, you are a Lean 60 consultant.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me a bit more about that.
So some people think that has to do with karate.
No.
I've had people ask me that, so you're a black belt? Oh, Alicia, that's interesting. Tell me more. And I'm like, no. This isn't karate or taekwondo or anything like that. So Lean Six Sigma are actually two different schools of thought or two different frameworks that were blended together. So we have Lean and then there's Six Sigma. Lean comes from Toyota, and Toyota basically developed this system that the whole point and purpose of it is to eliminate waste in your company. There could be wasted time, wasted motion, wasted money, wasted productivity. So it's a methodology for really analyzing how you are operating and figuring out where are the value added activities versus the non-value added activities. And the whole point of it, Rose, is to eliminate as many of those non-value added activities as possible. So it's a lot of flow charting and a lot of observations and really monitoring how you do what you do so that you can make it even better. On the Six Sigma side, that's more on the engineering. So that's where I really tap into my engineering skill set. And that came out of the Motorola company back in the 1970s. And that is basically a framework, is very rigorous, a lot of statistical analysis that's involved, but it's basically trying to figure out how can we eliminate defects or errors. So of course, because it comes out of manufacturing, it was all about the initial focus, especially again, if you're talking about a manufacturing company, is to make sure that whenever you are producing that physical good, that it always meets the specifications it's supposed to have every single time. But you and I both know that can be very difficult to achieve. When you produce a batch of something, let's say you have a batch of 100 widgets, there might be 10 of them that are defective in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Your job as that Six Sigma consultant is to figure out what do I need to do in the process of making those widgets to make it to where 99.99% of the time, there will never be any defective product. Now, on the service side, I like to tell people, don't think of your service as being defective, but think of it maybe in terms of errors. So going back to what we were talking about with checklists, if you are providing a service to your client, how accurate are your results? How accurate is the information that you are providing, that you are producing? And there are different measures that you can use to actually track and monitor your progress. And a lot of times it can start with just having a conversation with your client. What is it that you are actually looking for? And then monitoring and measuring whether, in fact, you were able to actually achieve that. And if you keep missing the mark, then you have to figure out, okay, what is it that I am doing incorrectly, or what is it that I could be improving so that I give the client not only what they want, but even more every single time I work with someone. So that's a kind of hopefully
it's a layman's explanation.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. A layman's explanation for what Lean Six Sigma is really all about.
Very good. Yeah. All right. Any special wise words that you have for small businesses to make themselves a bit more lean and, more productive?
Wow. Oh, gosh. There are so many things. So I will say this, Rose, and thank you for asking that question. Because of what we've all been experiencing lately with COVID, the coronavirus, we've all been forced to beef up our technology. And it's not always fun. It's not always pleasant. I want to share this piece of advice because it was very difficult for me last year, because I realized that almost every technology that I was using at the time required some type of an upgrade, because I was using it even more now. And they're like, okay, Alicia, enough with the free account. You need to upgrade your account now. But here's what I found, Rose, and it'd be interesting to know if you've also encountered this. Technology is great when it works. But when it doesn't work, it can make your life very unpleasant. Yes, exactly. And the other thing, so one very important piece of advice is to find someone that you can rely on who's very good at troubleshooting things. And you can pick up the phone, you can contact this person whenever you run into an issue, because you will run into issues, and you may not always have the time to potentially get on the phone with customer support for 2 to 3 hours. You have other things you need to be doing. That's one thing. The second thing is making sure that all of these different technologies that you are investing in, that they actually can integrate with each other. That's another really frustrating thing. So you might have a technology that for your CRM, for example, where you manage all of your contact information. You might also have a system for, we're using Zoom to record this call. Zoom is great because Zoom plays nice with so many other applications. That's why I really believe they just took off, especially in 2020. Because they integrate so seamlessly with so many other applications. But you might be using certain technologies right now that simply don't integrate with other tools that you're using. And so instead of it making your life easier, it's actually making it even more complicated, because you might find yourself having to enter information multiple times across multiple technologies. So keep in mind, it could mean that you have to switch from using one platform to another just so that you can have that integration capability. And again, it's not fun. It's not always pleasant, and something will break. And you just want to make sure that you have people around you that you can call on who can help you troubleshoot things when you do run into trouble.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I've had to upgrade a lot of my technology since last year. I was on a lot of free accounts, and I just found it, I couldn't get the satisfaction, or I couldn't get them to do what
Right.
I needed them to do. So, I'd go onto the lowest paid account that there was, but, it's there.
Same here.
So that
Same here.
I could get the stuff done, otherwise this podcast wouldn't be going out, and there'd be all sorts of other issues, so, just, spend that few dollars, because it's only a small investment in the long run, and it will come back to you anyway. So
That's true. That's very true. Yeah.
All right, Alicia, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Rose.
And where can they find? Oh, obviously your book's on Amazon. That's a bit of a silly question, Rose. Come on.
No, that's actually a great question, because someone just asked me this a few days ago. Where can I find your book? And I said, well, it is on Amazon. And this person didn't realize that it could be found anywhere books are sold online. So that's what I tell people. So there are people who don't like using Amazon, and I understand it. But I did tell them also that if you want the best price, you probably need to go to Amazon. But because different booksellers, they can set whatever price they want. But usually Amazon, you might find, would be the best bet in terms of price. But the best place to go to contact me is my website, and it's aliciabutlerpierre.com. And when you go there, that you can actually see everything about the book, the podcast, the consulting things that I do, and you'll also find how we can connect via social media as well. So it almost serves as a hub for any type of way that you might want to connect with me. So that's usually where I send people.
Because that was on, I should have had a tick list, you say, because I forgot to ask that.
Well, I definitely have a checklist, Rose, for my podcast, because if I didn't, I would, how sometimes you can just be on autopilot and you just,
Absolutely.
I don't know, you just, yes. And I'm always amazed at how I might forget to grab a glass of water, because you're talking a lot, and there have been times where I get parched and I'm thinking, I forgot to get a glass of water. So having that little checklist, and I just keep it on a small index card, and it's very helpful.
All right. I'll remember that for future. All right, Alicia, thank you so much. I know it's your, you don't mind getting out of bed at this time of the morning, but yeah, it's almost my bedtime, so.
It was definitely worth it. So thank you so much,
It was
Rose.
such a pleasure talking to you. And I will, I've got a little list where I keep the people I want to invite on again. So I'll put you on that list, and I'll have you on later in the year if that's okay.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Alicia.
Thanks, Rose.